Well, my name's Wayne Connell, and I'm with the Invisible Disabilities Association, and we have got a great friend of the organization here today. She's in the other screen over there, one of those directions, and her name is Karyn Buxman. She's been a great friend of our organization. She's a great friend of people who are dealing with disability, and most of all, she's really funny. Well, she'll tell you all that kind of stuff and what that all means about. So, Karyn, tell us about yourself, and go for it.
I am a big fan and a big supporter of Invisible Disabilities and wanted to be here to share my wit and wisdom because I do believe that humor is power. And I think it's such a wonderful, wonderful tool and one that people don't think about tapping into. And when I am speaking to various groups, I talk to them about how humor is powerful when you connect it to something. I love entertaining, and you know how much you and I love laughing together, and we love being entertained. But I'm talking about humor beyond comedy. I want people to recognize that when we connect humor to business, we can get profitability. And when we connect it to education, we can get knowledge. And when we connect it to spirituality, we can get enlightenment. And when we connect it to health, we can create wellness. And so for people who are listening to this, I want to share with them the fact that humor really is a very, very powerful tool. It can help them physically, psychologically, socially. A friend and colleague of mine, Lee Burke, who is a psycho-neuroimmunologist, just like it sounds. He said that if we took what we knew today about laughter and bottled it, that it would require FDA approval. That's how powerful it is. So, I want to be here. I want to answer questions. I want to be a resource. And I have many other resources that I can share with people to help them continue on their journey.
Okay, so what makes you an expert in this whole humor, this humor world? I mean, obviously we all think we're funny, and we all think we're experts, but tell me, what has Karyn, how have you gotten to where you're at, where I consider you probably just about one of the foremost authorities on humor and therapeutic humor. So tell me kind of how your little journey, how you got there.
Well, I'll give you the short version of how I became what is now called a neurohumorist. And that is my interest in how humor affects the brain and how it all pulls together to affect our health and our well-being. And I actually started this journey quite a few years ago. I'm not going to tell you how, because then you'll know how old I am. But actually started it a couple decades ago. And was studying the relationship between humor, health, and communication. And during that time, just when I saw how powerful this is, I got so excited. And at that point, knew that this is how I'm going to spend the rest of my career and the rest of my life. I live and eat and breathe this every day on how does humor affect people and how can this help people even if they're not funny? I mean, there are people that come to me and they go, but what am I going to do because I'm not funny? Can you help me be funny? And the truth is, I could help you be funny, but that'll serve you sometimes. But if you can see funny, now this serves you all the time because you don't have to be a humor initiator. You just need to be a humor appreciator. So it takes the pressure off. So a lot of what we talk about is how do you see funny? And there's so many avenues to this journey. I've been involved in the Journal of Nursing Jocularity, which is a humor magazine for nurses. I have been a longtime board member, past president, advisor for a small international association called the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, which is a great resource and also big supporter of Invisible Disabilities. I have written a series of books, ongoing series on how humor can help people with specific issues, particularly chronic illnesses. The first book came out last year, What's So Funny About Diabetes? Not a joke book. It's on how humor can actually help people who are dealing persons with diabetes. How can they use humor to improve their health, to improve their well-being, to improve their relationships? And even if you're not a person with diabetes. Maybe you're a cheerleader or someone that you love. How can you use this humor to help them? That was followed quickly by what's so funny about heart disease, because again, there's so many benefits to humor to our cardiovascular system and our entire blood vessels, arteries, veins. It's a very exciting bit of information that's coming out now about how humor deals with inflammation, and inflammation is what causes us to lay down plaque around, throughout our body. So we're going to be looking specifically, I'll be writing a series of books on things like what's so funny about Alzheimer's, what's so funny about cancer, what's so funny about depression. And these are things that people think, well, there's nothing funny about that. And the truth is, there probably isn't much funny about that. But while we can't control what has happened to us many times, we can control our response.
Well, I'll tell you, so why is humor important to people, people with disabilities? I mean, what makes it unique for them? What about it? How can it help them physically or psychologically or neuro, whatever you said, and socially, those kind of things.
Right. Well, let's just kind of hit each of these briefly. For instance, physically, people with disabilities, many of them are dealing with pain. And one of the areas that we have found is that humor and laughter can help with pain. There's a couple different modalities. Some of it is because it provides distraction. Some of it's because it provides muscle relaxation. Some of it's because it actually does cause certain chemicals to be produced in the body that do have pain relieving effects. And so, just that alone sometimes is very helpful for people who have disabilities. Stress is something that certainly everybody deals with, but particularly when you're dealing with, it's not that you just have this disability for a day. It goes on and on and on and on. And so as are very familiar with, stress isn't necessarily about one event. It's the continuing layering upon layering upon layering of these kinds of things and this accumulation. And so we need a lot of different tools in our tool belt. I don't want people to think that I'm saying humor's the be all end all and this is the only thing that you need. But this is one of the many tools that people need in their tool belt. And humor is seen as one of the healthy stress relieving mechanisms. It's a very positive way of dealing with stress because many people will deal with their stress in ways that are unhealthy, whether it's smoking or drugs or eating or drinking or excessive kinds of behaviors. And so we want them to learn how to use humor to deal with their stress. So we've got physical, we've got psychological, socially. Many times people who are dealing with disabilities tend to be isolated. And one of the really cool things about humor is that it builds relationships. It strengthens rapport between people. And so this is, really good news if you're with people that you like, you can increase those relationships. Yeah. Or if you don't like the people that you're around, then you can find new friends using humor as well. Right. So it's a multifaceted approach that humor can help people.
So here's the big question, right? Because I know all of us have, we told a joke and it went flat, right? Or we tried to be funny and it was at the expense of somebody else, and that always goes flat. But so what if people aren't funny? How do they find humor if they're not funny? I mean, some people, they're pretty serious about life, and of course having an illness is a very serious thing. Yeah. So what if you're not funny? I mean, what do you find and what do you do? Those things.
The important thing is to not just wait for humor to happen by chance. Okay. Many times people wait, when humor happens by chance, it's like, wow, that's great, that's funny. But then maybe nothing humorous is going to happen again for a while. And so we need to be proactive. And so this is where the seeing funny comes in. This is where the being proactive comes in. You don't wait for it to just happen by chance, because when it happens by chance, you get great benefits. But to get real results, we need to be proactive. And so how can you increase the likelihood of that? You can do things like manipulating your environment. What kinds of fun things can you put on your iPad or your iPod or your computer or your tape recorder? What kinds of things can you put in your library? What kinds of things can you keep in your car? What kinds of things can you listen to? What kinds of things can you bookmark? What kinds of props and toys can you keep around you to, again, trip your trigger. Surrounding yourself with fun people. And, many times there are people whose mission in life seems to be absolutely miserable, and to see how many of the rest of us they can take down with them. So, we try to spend less time with those people and think proactively. Who are the people that really light up when we come into a room? Who are the people that laugh and enjoy our presence? And how can we creatively spend more time with those people? Another great little tip that I learned from a fellow named O. Carl Simonton was to create something called a playlist. And when you create this playlist, you want to be in a good frame of mind and decide what are things that are fun for you. And come up with at least 10 to 20. And half of them should cost less than $5. And the rationale is this. When you're most in need of play is when you'll least be able to think of something fun to do. And the other piece of that is sometimes the reason we don't feel playful or we're not feeling well is because we don't have any money. So we don't want that to be something that keeps us, we don't want that to be an obstacle.
Right.
And so by doing these kinds of things proactively, these are some of the tips and things that we can do to make humor more likely. I also, people can sign up at the website at KarynBuxman.com. I send out monthly tips on here's ways to be proactive so that you can increase the likelihood and put humor into your life so that you can be healthier, so that you can be happier. Resources like AATH, their website is aath.org, which again, they put out lots of information. They have conferences to help people put that humor into their daily routine, their life, their work. InvisibleDisabilities.org. You guys have been very proactive in promoting healthy humor. So there's lots of resources out there. We just want to help people be proactive about it so that they don't wait for it to happen by chance.
Well, it's like I got for my wife, Sherry, the entire I Love Lucy series, right? So, it seemed pretty expensive because of the whole series, but the reality is we got 186 shows. We watched it. It took us 6 months to watch all these shows. And if you think about it in the whole scheme of things, that half an hour, I mean, what a great thing. And a lot of people I know have things like Netflix and they have Blockbuster and they can do streaming and there's all kinds of funny clips and videos. And I know sometimes you and I have talked about, you kind of send that on your Facebook, the baby laughing routine or the two twins that are laughing back.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, and those don't cost anything. Now,
exactly.
So tell me,
there's lots of those things. Go ahead.
So tell me, so it's KarynBuxman.com, but how do you spell Karyn? Because it's a little bit different than we're used to.
Good point. It's Karyn with a Y. I used to be really sad about that when I was a kid. Now I kind of like it. But yeah, it's Karyn with a Y, Karyn, KarynBuxman.com. They can also follow me on Twitter, which is also Karyn Buxman. Facebook, it's facebook.com/Karyn Buxman Speaks. So there's lots of different ways in the social media to find me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn because I really do want to be a resource for people. I really am very passionate about this, that I want them to be proactive about this because humor is power.
Well, I know one of the things about humor with disabilities, we kind of talk about what they call dark humor or, things that might offend other people, but when you're in the community of somebody who's ill, it's funny, right? And so kind of address the issue of when not to say certain things and maybe, how we shouldn't necessarily maybe find humor. Maybe we should only find humor in ourselves, right, versus other people, but kind of address that, right? Because we don't want to, we want to have the joy of the humor, but we don't want to step on other people's toes too. And,
that's an interesting point. In the piece that you and I co-authored for the disabilities.gov blog, we had some interesting responses from people who wrote back and said, sometimes I use humor and other people don't get it. They think that I'm being sick or they think I'm being twisted or dark. And the reason for that is that the closer you are to tragedy and death, the darker your humor becomes. People who are involved with illness, whether it's on the giving or receiving end, whether you're a provider or a patient, a lot of times our humor does become very dark because that's how we cope with things. And people on the outside looking in sometimes don't get that. I'm a big fan of what's called sick humor, dark humor, gallows humor. But, there's a couple of guidelines that will lessen the chance of you offending other people. One is to think about your relationship with the people you're sharing your humor. Right. Because if it's a good relationship, relationship, you can pretty much share any kind of humor, and they'll be okay with it. You may gross them out, but they'll get over it. But if it's somebody you don't know well, you need to be really careful. The second piece is, what's your environment, or who's your audience? Because sometimes people overhear things or see things that you didn't mean for them to hear or see. Maybe you posted something on a Facebook page and you didn't realize that your boss was going to be reading it, or whatever the case may be. But
right.
Keeping it within the confines of the group. And then timing. For most adults, and particularly people who have disabilities, a lot of their humor comes from pain. I want you to think about it, Wayne, really. For any of us who are adults, when was the last time you just had an outrageous laugh because you had too much money to spend?
Yeah, right.
Or because you had a great car. We're not laughing about the things that make us feel really good. We're laughing usually about the things that kind of make us twitch or make us a little bit crazy.
Right.
And the trick is, when can we emotionally detach from that? And we don't find the humor in things until we can emotionally detach. So this is a little bit trickier, because you may have emotionally detached, but the person you're sharing it with may not have emotionally detached. Let me give you just a quick little example.
Right.
When my mother was going through Alzheimer's, she commented to me one time, she said, I'm so appreciative and grateful to know how powerful humor can be to help me get through this. And she said, I laugh a lot. Not all the time, but at least she wasn't crying all the time. She said, I can laugh about the mistakes that I make or the things I'm forgetting. She said, your dad's not there yet. And the thing was that while she could start to detach from that emotional pain, it was too painful for my dad to watch. He could not see the humor in the situation. And when we would start laughing or making fun about things, he would say, I don't want to hear that, or, you shouldn't be making jokes about that, because it was painful for him. But if you keep those things in mind, what's your relationship with that other person? I call that bond. What's the audience that you're sharing with? I call that environment. And have they been able to emotionally detach from the pain? I call that timing. So I use the acronym BET, bond, environment, timing, and that makes your humor a safer bet.
Right. And then also about, it's about you, right? It's not about other people. We have this tendency to make fun of other people. And the reality is, we don't really have a right to make fun of them. We should be making.
Oh, really, you're so right, because really what it boils down to, and not that it's totally black and white, but really good guidelines are that you're laughing with someone, not laughing at someone.
Right.
And that's always harmful to the kind of humor that's targeting others, that's belittling others, that's making fun of other people, that makes them feel bad about themselves or make them feel excluded. That's the kind of humor that we're trying to avoid. And when in doubt, make fun of yourself. Use, self-effacing humor. Now, a guideline is making fun of something that you do and not of who you are.
Right.
A great friend of mine, a psychologist, Terry Paulson, once said, it's easier to admit that you made a mistake than it is to admit you are a mistake. Right. I think that's really a great piece of advice.
Well, I have a friend that says if you're going to make a mistake, make it big. That way, just go all in, man. That way, it's more fun that way,
Well, and if you're a humorist, that's the great news. It's all material.
Right. So, we kind of want to wrap this up a little bit right here, but really, the whole issue of addressing, laughter and, what maybe a couple things we can do, a couple little tips at the end here that really help people, just kind of get through those tough parts in their day. And I know you kind of talked a little bit about the list, but just kind of talk about maybe a couple of things that you do that or other people that have done that really make an impact, and then share again with us, how people can get a hold of you, because obviously they're going to have lots of questions, and they want to get lots of answers, and I think that reaching out to you would be a great way to do that.
If you just did one thing every day of asking yourself, what am I missing? Because so many times people have the mindset, well, you don't understand. There's nothing funny happening in my life. And if that's your attitude, you're going to be right. But if you ask yourself, well, what am I missing? You'll start hearing things and seeing things that everybody else is missing. They're overlooking because they're in too much of a hurry, or they just don't have that filter on. So, so ask yourself, what am I missing? Secondly, start seeking humor from other people. Every day, ask at least one other person, have you heard a good story? Do you have a funny joke? What's your favorite sitcom? What's your most embarrassing moment? Because two things will happen. One, people will start perceiving you as having a sense of humor, which is a great gift.
Right.
People are drawn to people with a sense of humor. They're seen as leaders. They're seen as having very positive traits. And secondly, you are now starting to collect material and stories from other people that now you can even share further with others.
Fantastic.
And so, by you're manipulating your mindset, you're looking for stories, you're sharing stories, and again, just being that humor appreciator and not necessarily worrying or having the pressure about being funny. You don't have to be funny. Again, just seeing funny, putting on that lens, and being proactive every day to put at least some kind of humor in your life. In the field of positive psychology, Martin Seligman found that people who practice 3 positive attitude exercises a day really decreased their depression and improved the level of happiness in their lives. And those can be a variety of different things that involve positive attitude. But my particular spin on that is that at least one of those things, one of those positive attitude interventions should be humor. So TiVo something. Get the I Love Lucy out. For us, it's, MASH. We've got the 11-year series, or we TiVo The Big Bang Theory, or, take a break and go to YouTube and type in laughing babies. But make a commitment to yourself that at least one time a day, or get a humor buddy and exchange with them. Text back and forth. What was your humor? What humor can you share with me today? But as long as you're proactive and you do one thing a day, I can guarantee it will improve the quality of your days and the quality of your life.
Okay, so how do we get a hold of you again so they can ask those final questions?
Yeah, there you go. KarynBuxman.com.
Spell it.
And that will also, KarynBuxman, KarynBuxman.com.
Right.
And if you go to that website, you'll find under there a related website called What's So Funny About. And this is where we post a lot of articles on things about how humor can help people with disabilities or chronic illnesses or issues. We've got a bunch of stuff up there right now posted about diabetes and heart disease because of the books. Those books are also available on Amazon. Twitter, you can find me at Karyn Buxman on Twitter, and on Facebook it's facebook.com/Karyn Buxman Speaks.
Well, I think, Karyn, it's awesome. I know even on our website on visibledisabilities.org, they can put your name in there and they can find articles, and there's videos from when you spoke at our banquet, and just, in your personal journey with invisible disabilities with your son. And that's just a teaser for them, and they can go find that out.
Yeah.
But we want to say thank you so much. I think this is great. We want to really help people understand that to see funny. I really like that idea. I always joke about my wife and I that Murphy's got nothing on us. It's that whole issue of just finding that funny. Sometimes the funny is the absurdity of our lives and all the craziness going on. So thank you again, and I so appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Wayne. I look forward to seeing you and Sherry soon.
Okay, thank you.